beginners, but you also use your experts. Ask questions. There might be people in here that know more about the subject than you do. You might can learn something. So make sure you use them in the presentation. Let them say something about their experience in the work and that about that topic, or just use them and make sure they're included. Okay, so losses, things you don't want to do. Using confusing metaphors. I'm from East Texas, country. We said things like, knee-high to a grasshopper, just stupid stuff like that. A lot of, people from somewhere else might not know where that means. So if you're gonna use metaphors, make sure you explain what they mean, please. Another one is assume everyone has the same background. Even in a room full of accountants, not everybody is on the same level. In this room, every one of us have different backgrounds, come from different countries, have different knowledge gaps. So, don't assume everybody can relate to what you're saying. And then the third one, tell culturally insensitive jokes or stories. That's self-explanatory. Don't, if me and Steven are joking around and telling jokes and stories, it might be highly offensive to somebody else. So make sure before your presentation, you make sure you don't include that, because you don't want to piss somebody off in your presentation. So, okay, trophies. What's the benefit of implementing our game plan? First, it increases the speaker's confidence. So once I know what your knowledge is, it increases my confidence and lets me tailor my material to you. Another trophy is familiarizes your audience with the material. I'm sure every one of us have, before we come to class or have come to a different class, we looked at the syllabus. Find out what the teacher's going over, if we want to come to class or not. But it gives the audience a little knowledge of what your topic is and doesn't leave them out in the blue. The third trophy is it keeps your audience engaged and satisfied. I don't want the back row falling asleep in the front row on their phones. So connecting with those beginners, using your experts, asking questions, it keeps them engaged. It keeps them motivated to stay listening to your presentation. So that's why we're drafting audience, measuring your audience knowledge. And I'm gonna give it back to the commissioner.
Thank you, John. And last but not least, we have Westcott. He's going to go over the importance of establishing that credibility.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, as he said, I'm going to be going over establishing credibility and why it's so important for your presentation. But first of all, I'm going to start with a short story about myself. So in high school, I played football and rugby, and I'd like to tell you differences between the two coaches I had. So my football coach was extremely out of shape, maintained a terrible diet. Yet after every practice, he would find whatever reason to make us run extra, do more exercises, whatever. And of course, the players didn't like that. We didn't respect him that much, and that in turn led to a decreased effort in practice, and we barely maintained a winning record on that football team. Compare that with my rugby coach, who was probably fitter than the entire team. Never asked us to do anything that he hadn't done, wasn't doing, and we knew that and we really respected that, so we gave our entire effort to anything he asked us to do. We won a state championship on that team. It's the exact same players from football and rugby team. The only difference was the coach and how they established credibility and the respect that they got from that. So next I'd like to talk about the wins. You need to lead by example in your presentation. You have to make sure the audience knows that what you're talking about is important enough for you to follow. You can do that by practicing what you preach. If you're telling them tips or advice on what to do, you need to be willing to follow those tips or advice. You also need to show transparency with your audience. That allows you to be more relatable, and they will listen to you better. And a great way to do that is just sharing a short story about yourself, like I did and like Mo did. That allows them to kind of get a little insight into your life, and just makes you more approachable and more human to them. Third, you need to be informed about your topic. You need to come with knowledge about what you're talking about, and that knowledge needs to come from credible sources. You don't want to use Wikipedia. I think we all know that. You need to use credible sources so that when you're stating facts, people know that they're real and they're backed up by something. Next, we have our losses, things you want to avoid in your presentations. You want to make sure you know when to raise and lower your voice. So if I start talking like this, people in the back probably can't hear me. You're going to tune me out really quickly. That's why projection is so important, and why Kyle harps on us to get better at that, so that your audience is in tune with you and paying attention, and you capture their attention. Another thing is, don't apologize for minor mistakes. It's just going to take away from your presentation. If you mess up something, if you stumble over a word, the audience probably isn't going to even know. They don't know what you're going to be telling them. So just keep moving on with your speech, and don't worry about that. Next, don't come unprepared. You need to have practiced your speech. This kind of goes hand in hand with research, but you need to add in the practicing here. You need to have gone over with your team, gone over what you're going to say, why you're going to say it, so that you can say it effectively and fluently. Lastly, we have our trophies. The benefits of what you're going to get, benefits of establishing credibility with your audience. You're going to gain the trust of your audience from showing transparency, sharing a story, however you go about that. Showing that transparency, you gain the trust of your audience and allow them to listen to you better and make your speech more memorable. Next, by being well informed in your topic, you yourself are going to be a more confident speaker. You're going to know what you're talking about. You're going to be able to talk to your audience instead of just rattling off facts that you've memorized the day before. Lastly, by establishing credibility, you're going to gain the respect of your audience and those around you. And when giving a presentation, you're going to have them listen more to you. And in the workplace, with this credibility and respect, you're going to be able to advance your career more effectively and faster. So now I'm going to hand it back to Commissioner, and he's going to wrap up this draft.
Yes, thank you, Westcott. And that concludes our 2019 business draft. So we're going to do a quick draft recap and summarize all the points that we went over today. So first up, you want to know your audience. Like Jorge says, you want to hand out surveys. You want to ask them questions where you can come in prepared, know what your audience is going to expect. Secondly, we have that empathy is key. You want to connect with your audience. You don't want to be shielded off. You want to be open with them. You want to be transparent. You want to let them know who you are, what you're doing, and why. Third, be well versed in other cultures. Just like Muhammad said, if that professor would have known that majority of his class would have been from other countries, he wouldn't have offended Muhammad. He would have known, hey, this guy comes from another background. I need to, change up my methods, change up my thinking. That's why it's so critical to do your research and know who is in your audience and how to express yourself towards them. Fourthly, we have to gauge what your audience knows. Like John said, not everyone knows about stocks. I hardly know any. So when you're going into a presentation, don't assume that everyone just knows every single thing about stocks or accounting or audience analysis. So you want to know how much knowledge they have and break it down to a level they can understand. So it'll be clear and effective. And last but not least, we have established that credibility. And just like Westcott says, you don't want to be the overweight football coach that is make you run after class, even though you wouldn't do that. You want to be that fit rugby coach that is going to motivate you, prepare you for what's ahead. You want to go into your presentation with sources. You want to be loud. You want to speak clearly. You want the audience to know that you are here and you know exactly what you're talking about. And that is why all 5 of these keys are going to be a game changer and make you a future MVP. And that's going to conclude our presentation. We're going to open up the floor for a press conference to field any questions y'all have. Questions?
What was the most important of all the 5 traits? What's in your opinion is the most important?
I would have to say establish that credibility. You want to be prepared. You want to know. Your audience wants you to know every single thing about that topic. You don't want to go into a presentation, winging it. You want to do the research, state your findings, and show them that you're prepared for everything. Good question. Does anyone have any other questions for tonight?
Which point do you utilize the least?
The least. Let's see. So, all of them are game-changing skills, man. You're going to want to use all of these to better understand your audience. So I wouldn't say there's exactly a least skill that you would use. You want to apply these to everyday presentations, speaking skills.
What were your 2 credible sources?
So here's our reference page. And so just like Steven, he gave a stat about what's being used in the workplace. Exactly. And we have a couple other ones that would just help, establish that credibility, know what we are talking about, know if this is going to make sense to y'all, and know what we are saying is going to catch on and make sense. Yes, sir.
What was that East Texas metaphor? I didn't hear it.
Oh, I was curious myself.
Knee-high to a grasshopper. Do you even know what it means? And like when, like old people use it saying, I haven't seen you since you were knee-high to a grasshopper. That means I haven't seen you.
Okay. We all learned something today. All right, guys. Any more questions? Yep.
How is your opinion of becoming commissioner changed during your presentation? How has your opinion changed? How have you changed?
I have to be well versed in all 5 of these skills. I have to know a little bit about everyone, all 5 of them. So I have to study what each one of my draft experts are going to know and then apply it during that draft recap and during that agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.